Judge orders arrest of Jay-Z after George's testimony. Kash Patel names Jay-Z in shocking evidence. Judge orders arrest of Jay-Z after George Clooney's explosive testimony. Kash Patel, acting as special counsel, introduces shocking evidence that turns the courtroom into the epicenter of one of the most high-stakes trials in modern American legal history. Inside the federal courthouse in Manhattan, the atmosphere was tense from the outset. No cameras were allowed, but the energy inside mirrored the media frenzy outside. Crowds packed the sidewalks, news outlets had reporters on every corner, and the world was watching. The headline-grabbing name wasn't just Diddy, it was George Clooney. Not as a movie star, not as a diplomat, but as a key witness. Clooney took the stand without fanfare. His voice was steady, but his face was set with intensity. "This isn't about gossip," he said. "This is about a machine that destroys lives to maintain control." His first revelation was immediate and chilling, an incident at a 2013 party in the Hamptons, where Diddy had allegedly said to him, "Rap won't change the world. Politics will. And you, George, are my ticket." At first, Clooney had dismissed the remark, but what followed were years of pressure, white parties' political introductions, and finally veiled threats. It escalated until one day, his wife Amal Clooney received an unmarked envelope. Inside was a photo of their children on a school playground. There was no message, only implication. The courtroom gasped. Clooney didn't flinch. He recounted how Amal was later attacked during a legal summit in Paris. The attacker, he testified, was Jay-Z. Security prevented George from intervening. Within 24 hours, Amal had dropped her complaint, citing a misunderstanding under influence. But privately, an email arrived. One more word, and your children disappear. The judge called for recess. Reporters stormed out to deliver breaking news. Inside, Clooney remained in his seat still, but visibly weighed down. That was when Kash Patel stepped forward. This trial, he said, is not just about one man. It is about a network of power that's gone unchecked for decades. And it ends here. Patel then revealed the existence of an audio file from a now-deceased priest, Father Marcel of St. Ignatius Church. The recording had been made legally and delivered to federal agents before Marcel's death, later ruled a poisoning. When the recording played, in court, Diddy's voice was unmistakable. "I see the devil when I sleep. But I am the devil when I wake," he confessed. "Not because I had to, because I could. And they let me." He mentioned George. He mentioned Amal. And he mentioned Jay-Z, describing him not as a partner, but as someone who ensured obedience. Following the recording, Patel read from Father Marcel's final journal. He confessed not for forgiveness, but to boast the priest had written. He feared only one thing: exposure. Then came the ledger. Documents submitted to the FBI by the priest, including financial records, emails, and a black logbook later dubbed the Marcel Ledger, which contained coded entries, tying shell companies to political offices, charities, and entertainment conglomerates. With the courtroom hanging on every word, Clooney returned to the stand. Did he confirm the day his children vanished? Yes, Clooney said. March 12, 2015, they disappeared without explanation for 15 hours, then returned. Unharmed, but changed. A van was waiting outside our home. A note in the mailbox read, "Obedience is survival." Why didn't he go public then? Clooney's voice cracked. Because the price wasn't mine alone to pay. Then Patel presented a new piece of evidence, a video pulled from a vault in Clooney's private home. In it, Amal read a statement on camera dismissing the Paris incident as consensual and alcohol-induced. But forensic experts confirmed under oath that Amal's body language indicated high distress and coercion. Amal later submitted a sworn affidavit, now unsealed, confirming she was threatened into making that statement. Then came audio, Jay-Z's voice calm and unmistakable. "Tell George to play nice, or next time the twins don't come back." The jury was shaken. One juror wept openly. Next, Patel introduced records of Diddy's international transactions. Millions sent under the guise of consulting fees, routed through layers of anonymity. One payment led directly to an alias account tied to Clooney. "Can you explain this?" the prosecution asked. George nodded, his voice strained. "He paid me. To make introductions. To buy time. I didn't want to. I had no choice. He threatened my family. Access to what Patel asked. UN officials. Political credibility. A seat at the table of global power." "And the real agenda?" Clooney answered. "He was using nonprofit foundations to mask an international trafficking operation." The courtroom froze as a still frame from a confidential video flashed on the screen, an image of Clooney's twins. A masked figure behind them and Amal restrained. Patel called it what it was. "This is not influence. This is criminal enterprise. Coordinated, strategic, and global." But the most devastating detail came next. Jay-Z wasn't just involved, Patel said. He was central, and now we have evidence to prove it. And with that, the judge ordered Jay-Z to be taken into custody, pending further proceedings. The courtroom erupted. Reporters flooded the steps. Protesters clashed outside. Inside, George sat shoulders heavy, but for the first time upright. The story, however, was far from over. With Jay-Z now under arrest, and Diddy facing federal custody, the courtroom transformed from a spectacle into a battlefield of truth. What had started as a single testimony had unraveled into a systemic exposure. But prosecutors made it clear they weren't finished. Kash Patel returned to the floor with renewed force, laying the groundwork for what he called the structure behind the faces. He began with metadata. Thousands of pages of financial records were entered into evidence: offshore wire transfers, internal emails, contracts signed under false identities. At the center of the operation was a string of shell corporations, all pointing back to a Luxembourg-based data center. The FBI, acting under an emergency court order, had already conducted a raid. What they retrieved was staggering over 200 terabytes of encrypted footage, internal communications, and personnel logs. Patel didn't dramatize the content. He let the numbers speak: 87 verified names, 42 recurring payments, linked to influence buying 19 confirmed cover-ups, and hundreds of video clips archived under labels like compliance footage and legal hold. One of those videos was of George Clooney. The prosecution played a brief redacted clip in which Clooney, visibly disoriented, is shown in a private lounge area. Beside him, two men speak inaudibly, but one is confirmed to be Jay-Z. A timestamp places the recording just hours before Clooney's 2014 hospitalization, a night he previously testified he was beaten and drugged. Medical records from that night confirmed the presence of a rare, unclassified sedative, later matched to the compound found in Father Marcel's bloodstream. Another clip shows Amal Clooney at an international forum in Geneva. Moments after stepping off stage, she's approached by two unidentified men. The footage, grainy but authentic, shows her being ushered away from the public space. She never returned to the conference. A note found in her hotel room that evening, which the court had already seen, read, "Your silence is a service." These weren't isolated events. They were patterns. Patterns of control. Then came the insider testimony. A former employee of Roc Nation Identity Protected testified via secure video link. Her voice altered, face blurred, but her words clear. "I saw them plan it. I saw the videos, the scripts, the instructions. These weren't secrets. They were protocols. Amal was a target because she had legal reach. George because he had diplomatic credibility." The jury leaned forward as she continued. Jay-Z told Diddy, "We break her before she breaks us." She recounted blackmail conversations, detailed the structure of a private server system that stored leverage, personal footage, doctored statements, audio recordings used to secure silence from public figures. This wasn't just a scandal. This was architecture. Next, FBI agent Laura Quinn took the stand. She had led the year-long covert investigation that began with Father Marcel's encrypted submission. Her statement dismantled any remaining doubt. "We embedded agents. We intercepted communications. We built a complete digital blueprint of this network. What we found was a celebrity control structure designed to extract power and protect itself through intimidation and influence. She played audio snippets conversations between Diddy and unnamed tech moguls discussing the deletion of metadata payments to suppress litigation and security protocols for high-risk witnesses. But it was the third clip that brought the room to a standstill. Inside a private residence dimly lit and luxuriously furnished, Diddy can be heard speaking freely. Clooney's weak. Hit the kids next. He'll fold. He always folds. Amal clenched her hands. George stared straight ahead. Jurors wiped tears. Still, Patel wasn't done. He called the final witness of the day, a former security contractor who once worked directly for Jay-Z. Now, under witness protection, he testified anonymously. I was ordered to drug George at that 2014 event. GHB, I poured it into his drink. Watch them film him. Jay-Z was there. He said, "Welcome to the real world." I was ashamed. That's why I'm here. The court sat motionless. No objections, no rebuttals. Just the sound of breathing as the weight of the testimony settled like fog over the room. Before the session ended, Patel introduced an internal email exchange dated 2 weeks before the Paris incident. Jay-Z wrote to Diddy Amal's about to break. Clooney's already twitchy. We make her compliant, or we bury the tapes. The email was verified, IP logged, authenticated, and sealed the courtroom's silence with cold clarity. Outside, the street swelled with protesters, some holding signs with Amal's face, others demanding arrests beyond the celebrity circle. Hashtags like Trishwadi Break the Circle and Justice for Amal trended globally. And for the first time, the institutions surrounding these high-profile figures appeared rattled. Inside, George and Amal sat quietly. No relief. Not yet. But for the first time, they were no longer alone. The trial was moving from scandal to transformation, from spectacle to systemic collapse. And by the time the next morning arrived, the world would never look at power the same way again. As dawn broke on day 19th, the federal courthouse in Manhattan was already surrounded. Reporters lined the streets. Protesters held candles and placards. Networks from around the world had mobilized. Inside the courtroom took on the air of a historical chamber, not for legislation, but for revelation. This was no longer just a trial. It was a reckoning. George Clooney returned to the witness stand under heavy federal security. He looked older, thinner, but unwavering. Kash Patel rose and resumed with surgical clarity. Mr. Clooney, yesterday, we reviewed your personal suffering. Today, we ask, what did you witness? George answered without theatrics. There was a room, beneath an amusement park. I went there, twice. Gasps broke out. He continued. It wasn't urban legend, it was real. An underground hall, steel walls, red lights, no windows. Music that pulsed like something primal. Politicians, CEOs, celebrities. All masked, all watching. Patel asked, watching what degradation? George replied, jaw tight. Vulnerable people coerced, humiliated. This wasn't spontaneous, it was orchestrated. He paused. Jay-Z wasn't a bystander, he was a participant. Sometimes an enforcer. The court fell into a stunned silence. Patel presented photographs, grainy but authenticated, captured using micro cameras embedded in George's glasses and wristwatch. They showed masked figures recognizable only by posture and attire. Metadata confirmed location and timestamp. This is not tabloid fantasy, Patel said. This is primary evidence from a source with everything to lose. The jury leaned in. Next, Patel turned to communication logs, emails sent through burner accounts traced back to Diddy's organizations. One read, Amal's time is ticking. Withdraw the complaint, or we release footage. Another, check your twin's school gate. A third, want to see what fear looks like. Then came Amal Clooney's sealed affidavit. She had now given permission to have it read aloud. Her voice, recorded and verified, echoed across the chamber. I was told I was drunk. I wasn't. I was told it was consensual. It wasn't. I saw the footage they had of our children. That's why I withdrew. I had no choice. Silence. Not a movement. Jurors sat pale. Some covered their mouths, Even the judge shifted in his seat. Patel let the moment breathe. Then he addressed the courtroom directly. This is not about celebrity. This is organized abuse racketeering conspiracy, and a system that mocked justice while pretending to serve it. Clooney added, they joked about it. They called it the circle. If you were inside, you were protected. If you left, you were erased. He named names: senators, tech executives, NGO directors. Every name backed by documentation, travel logs, financial ties, guest lists. With each reveal, the temperature in the room dropped. People in the audience wept. One woman stood and left in disbelief. Another whispered, "No, not him." The prosecution produced a final clip for the day. Patel warned it was redacted but essential. The lights dimmed. The screen showed Jay-Z mask halfway down, staring into the lens. You cross us, we erase you. Your family, your legacy, your name. Beside him, Diddy sat silent. But his expression, blank, deliberate, spoke volumes. George turned to the jury. I was told I had power. But when you stand against this machine, your name means nothing. Unless you do something with it. The day ended with Patel holding up a flash drive. The ledger is real. The signatures are real. The network is real. And thanks to those brave enough to speak, it's unraveling. The court recessed. Outside crowds erupted not in celebration, but in mourning. For the illusion of safety, for the years of silence, and for the people who had suffered while the world watched from a distance. And yet, something had shifted. Power once hoarded behind closed doors was now being dragged into the light. Tomorrow, Amal Clooney would appear in person, and the world would hear her speak. The morning of day 20 began with complete silence as Amal Clooney entered the courtroom. No jewelry, no entourage, just a simple black suit, and the presence of someone who had survived and chosen to speak. She took the stand with dignity and composure. George sat in the front row, eyes fixed forward. The judge nodded. Kash Patel approached gently. Mrs. Clooney, you've submitted written testimony and affidavits. Today, you've chosen to speak directly. Why now? Her answer was immediate. Because silence didn't protect me, and it won't protect the next woman either. The courtroom braced itself as Amal recounted what had previously only been documented in sealed statements. The incident in Paris, it wasn't spontaneous. It wasn't romantic confusion. It was planned. She described how she was lured into a private room during an international legal summit, how security outside was not there to protect, but to prevent escape. And how afterward, an email arrived with veiled warnings, followed by her children disappearing for 15 hours. They came back unharmed, but shaken. A note on our doorstep read, "Next time you won't be so lucky." The defense objected. The judge overruled them. Amal reached into her folder and handed over the original note. Patel entered it into evidence. Then came security camera footage submitted by George's private team, showing a black SUV idling outside their estate during the window of the children's disappearance. License plates were blacked out. The vehicle matched one registered under a Diddy-associated shell company. Next, the prosecution called FBI agent Lara Quinn back to the stand. She introduced a new round of evidence compiled from covert operations and intercepted digital files. In one video, Diddy is heard discussing settlement negotiations with an unnamed executive. We'll pay her. But then we scrub the file and flag the husband. Clooney's cracked before. He'll fold again. Then another voice enters Jay-Z's. We own the courts. Who's going to touch us? Quinn confirmed the voices using forensic voice print analysis. The courtroom sat frozen. But the moment that reshaped the entire trial was yet to come. A redacted clip, no more than 15 seconds, was played. Diddy, seated on a leather couch in what appeared to be a private lounge, was caught on hidden camera. Clooney's weak, he said, glass in hand. Hit the kids next. He'll fold. He always folds. Amal's jaw clenched. George closed his eyes. The jurors shaken beyond composure. Patel then revealed one final witness for the day, an ex-bodyguard of Jay-Z now under federal protection. His identity was masked, his voice altered. But his testimony landed like thunder. I was ordered to spike Clooney's drink at that 2014 event. I used GHB. Then I watched them film him compromising material for leverage. Jay-Z was present. I remember what he said. "Welcome to the real world." He paused. That's when I realized I was on the wrong side. The jury sat silent, some visibly emotional. One juror whispered, "This is unbelievable." Patel played one last clip. Diddy watching a live feed of a hospital room. George was unconscious, bruised, hooked to IVs. "Keep him alive," Diddy said. "I'm not done using him." With that, the courtroom adjourned for the day, but the country didn't sleep. Across platforms, the words "break the circle" became a rallying cry. Hashtags flooded timelines. Activists called for investigations into not only celebrities, but institutions. Old donations were returned, photos erased, organizations distanced themselves from familiar names. Inside the courtroom, the final stage had begun. The jury would deliberate soon. And outside, the world waited not just for a verdict, but for justice that had eluded too many for too long. Day 21 of the trial began under a sky thick with anticipation. Outside the courthouse, a silent vigil stretched for blocks. People held candles, signs, and photographs, not just of Amal and George Clooney, but of others whose names never made headlines. Inside, the press box was full. Federal agents lined the walls, and at the center, the jury was ready. Judge Carrington entered promptly and called for closing arguments. Kash Patel stood first. For 20 days, he said, "You've heard testimony, seen evidence, watched a structure of fear and control unfold before your eyes. This isn't a story about stardom, it's a case of systemic manipulation, built on silence fueled by fear." He let the moment settle. Sean Combs didn't act alone, but he led. He recruited. He threatened. He blackmailed. He did not just break laws, he broke people. Then one final recording played Diddy's voice, grainy but unmistakable. People don't care what's real. They care what they're told is real. A second clip followed, Jay-Z's voice laughing, "Who's gonna stop us?" George Clooney. The courtroom remained still. Patel turned to the jury. "He did stop you. And today, so can you?" Then the defense rose. They argued that none of the most shocking events could be directly tied to Diddy or Jay-Z through physical evidence alone. That the redacted videos left room for doubt. That George Clooney's testimony, while compelling, was emotional, not legal. "This trial has been theatrical," said defense counsel Agnifilo. "But justice is not a performance. It's a process. Don't let outrage replace objectivity." He gestured toward the gallery. "This case at its heart is circumstantial. Your duty is to weigh facts, not feelings." Judge Carrington instructed the jury. "You are to determine guilt based on the law and the evidence, not popularity, not pressure, not perception." Then they retired. Outside, the country held its breath. 9 hours later, the verdict arrived. Back in the chamber, the four-person rose. In the matter of the United States versus Sean Combs. On count 1, racketeering, guilty. Count 2, conspiracy, guilty. Count 3, trafficking, guilty. All remaining charges, guilty. Diddy slumped in his seat. Gasps filled the courtroom. Amal clutched George's hand. The judge banged his gavel. "Order." Then Judge Carrington turned to the defendant. "Mr. Combs, you have been found guilty on all counts. Sentencing will occur in 30 days. You are remanded to federal custody." As U.S. Marshals approached, Diddy finally spoke. "This isn't over." George stood calmly. "Yes," he said. "It is." The court adjourned, but the impact rippled immediately. Across Hollywood and Washington, D.C., resignations followed. CEOs stepped down. Senators faced ethics probes. The Marcel Ledger had become more than evidence, it had become a map. George and Amal retreated from the public eye, temporarily relocated for security. But Amal resumed her human rights work this time with global reach. Jay-Z faced pending investigation. The tapes were authenticated. No one was untouchable anymore. At sentencing, Judge Carrington delivered a sentence of 175 years in federal prison for Sean Combs, no possibility of parole. There were no cheers in the courtroom, only quiet and clarity. That evening, in their countryside home, George tucked in Ella and Alexander. Daddy Ella asked softly, "Is the bad man gone forever?" George paused. Then, with more certainty than he had felt in years, he replied, "Yes, sweetheart. He can't hurt anyone ever again." And in that moment, justice didn't feel like a concept. It felt real.